According to authors Melinda Smith and Jean Siegel in an online article, 1 in every 4 women are affected daily by domestic violence. And according to an online article on WebMD.com, domestic violence is one of the leading causes of injury in women ages 18 to 44. Domestic violence also affects men. As my domestic violence counselor, Ms. Sheila Rivers, would say, it works for the EEA. It knows no race, religion, or financial background. So it's safe to say that domestic violence can and usually does affect anyone, regardless of who you are. Take me, for example. I do not look like what you would think would be a typical domestic violence victim, but because I was a victim of domestic violence for so many years, becoming a survivor, being involved in special advocacy programs, and doing research on the subject, I feel that I'm qualified to speak to you on this topic today. The purpose of my speech today is to inform each and every one of you about domestic violence. Every 9 seconds in the U.S., according to the National Domestic Violence Statistics, a woman is beaten, along with an estimated 1.3 million women being physically assaulted each and every year by their intimate partner. Domestic violence mainly affects women, but it also affects men, as well as every race, religion, or sexual orientation. I want to speak to you today about the impact domestic violence has on its victims, the warning signs, as well as also the available resources that are out there for victims trying to get out. For starters, I'd like to give you some insight on domestic violence and how it affects its victims. Domestic violence and the abuse associated with it is used for one purpose, and that's to gain control and maintain the control over the victim. According to a YouTube video by Leslie Morgan Steiner, over 85% of abusers are usually men. In fact, that leaves the other 15% as the woman abusers. And over 500 women are killed each year due to this crime. Although people usually believe that domestic violence only involves physical harm, that's not always true. Domestic violence involves physical, mental and psychological, spiritual, financial, as well as sexual abuse. And a victim does not necessarily have to go through all physical harm. Some victims experience no physical harm at all, but only emotional abuse. Every victim involved in domestic violence has a unique situation. Never think it's easy to just get out. Each and every victim's focus is mainly on survival each and every day of their lives, and most of them have young children involved. Now that you've gotten a brief summary on what domestic violence is, let me give you some knowledge on possible warning signs that are involved with domestic violence. Authors B. Holland and D. Gaggart, in an online video called Telling Amy's Story, states that although it may be hard to notice signs of abuse in a relationship, that some of the victims show signs of fear, they have no self-esteem, and they wear clothing to cover up their injuries. Most victims feel that nobody will believe them or judge them, so they tend to not want to get out. Coming from my experience is why it took me so long to get out of my relationship was that we had 2 small children involved. I was always in fear of what he might do if I had left. Telling someone is the first thing into becoming a survivor of domestic violence. I can replay the words my domestic violence counselor would say: domestic violence only thrives in silence, which means tell everyone. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, family, or just anyone. And once you've told those people and you're out of the abuse, that's when the many available resources become handy to you. Most victims don't know that there's even help out there. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE, is a 24-hour-a-day crisis hotline and helps victims with finding their own state resources as well as shelter placement information for the victims in that area. Being that we live in Mississippi, I'm going to give you some of the local resources in our state that I've encountered along my journey as a survivor. There's a Gulf Coast Women's Center for Nonviolence, which is a 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-year shelter, and it has outstanding volunteers that are focused on enabling the victim to be able to function normally and safely away from their abuser. According to HelpGuide.com, the first 72 hours after a victim's abuser has been arrested and released is the most critical. In those 72 hours, the victim's abuser is usually contemplating on revenge. So that's where the Women's Center comes into play, and it actually becomes like a safe haven for these victims. The victims receive counseling, group therapy, and many other things to help them stay safe. There's also free legal services and an address confidentiality program, as well as victims' compensation through the Attorney General Jim Hood's office, which can help a victim start a new life. Having the right resources and by people advocating against this crime can help victims know that they're not alone. As my speech comes to an end, I would like to thank each and every one of you for letting me inform you on domestic violence and by letting me explain just what it is, the warning signs, and available resources that are out there for these victims. I hope you've gained some knowledge and great insight on this topic today, and I hope you'll also be able to help someone that you love or someone that is in need. As I stated before about my experiences, the research I did, and by being a survivor of domestic violence, I feel I'm very certified to have spoke to you today on this topic. By ending this speech again, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to show you some pictures of my own personal experience with domestic violence. Men and women, young and old, are all affected by domestic violence. That's such big odds it could be affecting someone you know right now. Remember, for the most of us that can speak, we have a voice that can be useful in saving someone's life or even just helping someone. So, speak up and stand up against domestic violence. Thank you.